Horus Heresy. It's where we all want to start the Warhammer story, but truth be told, the books aren't a good place to start. Unless you're well familiar with the lore and the actual story that the book is about to tell, it's a confusing wormhole. You'll find yourself Googling the information you need to know quite a fair bit. That's what this video is designed to be. Let's start. In the annals of the Imperium, few carried the weight of Horus Lupercal. Once the most beloved of the Emperor's sons, the brightest star amongst the Primarchs, he was destined for greatness, but greatness carried a burden. And in the case of Horus, it led to his ultimate destruction and the near collapse of the Imperium himself. Horus was Warmaster, the chosen one to lead the Emperor's forces in the Great Crusade, to reunite the scattered remnants of humanity under the Imperium. His loyalty was absolute until the whispers of chaos reached his ear. Born on the war-torn world of Cathonia, Horus Lupercal emerged from the ashes of chaos. Cathonia was a brutal place, characterized by its gang wars and a harsh, unforgiving landscape. In this crucible of violence and survival, Horus was not just another child of fate. He was the first Primarch to be discovered by the Emperor, who had been searching for his lost sons across the galaxy. Upon his arrival to Cathonia, the Emperor recognized the potential within young Horus. Rather than force him into submission, the Emperor chose to nurture him, building a bond that would become foundational to their relationship. This deep connection transformed Horus into the Emperor's favorite son, elevating him above his siblings in both esteem and trust. Horus quickly rose through the ranks, leading the Lunar Wolves, a legion that reflected his indomitable spirit and strategic genius. He was known for his unmatched tactical brilliance, capable of turning the tides of battle with a mere flick of his wrist. Whether it was on the fields of war or in the grand strategy of the Great Crusade, Horus's insights and charisma were unrivaled. His ability to inspire loyalty within his men was legendary. They would follow him into the fires of battle without question. His legend grew with each victory, from the conquest of distant worlds to the unification of humanity under the banner of the Imperium. Horus was not just a general, he was a hero, a beacon of hope in a galaxy riddled with darkness. His victories were not simply strategic, they were also celebrated in song and story, as bards sung of his bravery and valor. He became a symbol of the Emperor's vision, a living embodiment of the Great Crusade itself. It wasn't just his military prowess that made Horus stand out. His deep bond with his brothers played a significant role in his ascent. He treated them not just as fellow warriors, but as equals and families. This camaraderie helped foster a sense of unity amongst the Primarchs, promoting cooperation and mutual respect that would later fracture under the weight of betrayal. His charisma and warmth endeared him to not just his brothers, but also to countless men and women who served alongside him. He understood the value of morale, often taking the time to connect with the soldiers he commanded. The personal touch transformed him into a figure of immense loyalty, earning him the respect and admiration of the legionnaires. To them, he was not merely a commander, but a leader in the dark times of a galaxy. As Warmaster, Horus was given command over the entire Imperium's forces, a responsibility the Emperor believed only Horus could bear. But power, even when given out of trust, can plant the seeds of doubt. Despite his outward success leading the Great Crusade to expand the Imperium's borders, uniting the worlds under the Emperor's vision, the rot of treachery had begun to fester within Horus. The Chaos Gods, ever watchful for powerful souls to corrupt, had long set their gaze upon him. They saw in Horus not just the Emperor's favorite son, but the key to unraveling the Imperium from within. Their chance came on the blasted surface of Davin's moon, where destiny took its dark turn. It was during the campaign against a seemingly insignificant enemy that Horus was gravely wounded, struck down by a foul weapon, a cursed blade. His injury was more than physical, it was spiritual. As his body lay broken, it was a metaphor for the fractures in his spirit. Horus had always been confident, self-assured, a leader beyond compare. But now, as his lifeblood seeped into the soil of Davin's moon, doubt crept into his heart. The invincible Warmaster was at his weakest. In this moment of vulnerability, the agents of chaos made their move. Horus was taken by his most trusted advisor, Erebus of the Well-Bearers, to the temple of the Serpent Lodge. But Erebus was no longer the man Horus believed him to be. He was a corrupted tool of the ruinous powers, a puppet whose strings were pulled by dark forces beyond comprehension. with treacherous intent. Erebus led Horus into the temple, where the dark gods had prepared their most potent weapon, deception. The temple was a place of ancient, forbidden rites, steeped in deep rituals that had long been forgotten by the Imperium. Inside its walls, the boundaries between reality and the warp were thin. It was here, amidst the incest and chanting of the Davinites, that Horus's spirit was laid bare. The Chaos Gods, with their insidious whispers, reached out to him, weaving a web of lies and half-truths that even the mightiest Primarch could not fully unravel. As Horus laid upon the altar, hovering between life and death, the Dark God showed him visions. Horrific, twisted glimpses of a future where the Emperor betrayed everything they had fought for. In these visions, the Emperor was no longer the guiding light of the Imperium, but a tyrant ascending to godhood, abandoning humanity to suffer under his divine rule. His beloved sons, the Primarchs, were cast aside, mere tools to secure the Emperor's ultimate power. Horus, in these visions, was the only one who could see the truth. He was the savior of mankind, the only one capable of preserving humanity's future from the Emperor's betrayal. These visions played on every doubt Horus had ever harbored. The whispers of the Chaos Gods exploited the cracks in his loyalty. The moments where he had questioned the Emperor's decisions, the times he felt abandoned or overlooked. Was the Emperor truly the benevolent leader he claimed to be? Or had the Great Crusade been a means to consolidate power for his own apotheosis? The lies were perfectly crafted. Horus, despite all his wisdom and strength, was confused, vulnerable, and ultimately human. He wanted to believe that his father had a plan for him, for his brothers, for humanity. But the Dark Gods twisted that belief, turning it into poison. They preyed on Horus's fear of abandonment, of betrayal, convincing him that the Emperor had strayed from the original vision of the Great Crusade, that his father was no longer the savior of mankind, but its oppressor. In his moment of greatest weakness, surrounded by lies and deceit, Horus made the faithful choice. He succumbed to the seduction of chaos, convinced that the Emperor was the true traitor, and that he, and only he, could save humanity from this false god. He accepted the power that the ruinous powers provided him. In doing so, he became their greatest pawn, a puppet bound by the strings of gods who only sought to destroy. This was the moment that everything changed. The Warmaster, once the Emperor's most loyal son, had fallen. The warrior who had been the greatest linchpin the Great Crusade had known. In his place stood a creature consumed by ambition, vengeance, and a false vision of future-shaped chaos. Horus was no longer the protector of the Imperium, but its greatest threat. A warlord, blinded by the lies of the Dark God, ready to tear the galaxy apart in his misguided crusade. With Horus now fully under the sway of chaos, the galaxy burned. The Horus Heresy began, a civil war pitted brother against brother, son against father. Horus's first act of rebellion came at the Isstvan III massacre, where he purged the loyalists within his own ranks, slaughtering his own men. From there, the heresy spread like wildfire. Legions that had once fought side by side now turned against each other. The most shocking betrayal came from the Primarchs closest to Horus: Fulgrim, Angron, Moritarian, and Lorgar, who followed him into treachery. Together they tore the world apart, all while Horus sought to take the ultimate prize, the Imperial throne. After years of a devastating war, it all culminated in the Siege of Terra. The forces of Horus gathered for one final assault on the Emperor's palace. Terra, the cradle of humanity, became a battlefield where millions perished. It was a time of unimaginable bloodshed, betrayal, and desperation. At the heart of the conflict was Horus, the beloved son, now a monstrous figure, corrupted beyond recognition. The Emperor, his loyal son, and the beleaguered defenders of the Imperium stood firm, knowing the fate of the galaxy rested on the outcome of this battle. The climactic moment of the heresy came when Horus, in his own arrogance, lowered the shields of the battle barge, inviting the Emperor to take him on in single combat. This would be the final confrontation between father and son. Loyalty and betrayal. Hope and despair. Sanguinius, the angelic Primarch, the noblest of all the Emperor's sons, was the first to face Horus in that faithful duel aboard the Vengeful Spirit. Wings unfurled, sword in hand, Sanguinius fought with all the grace and fury of his angelic figure. He had always been the beacon of hope and purity amongst his brothers, but now he stood against the twisted form of Horus. No longer the Warmaster he once loved, but a vessel of chaos. His body was swollen with power beyond mortal comprehension. The clash between the two was titanic. Sanguinius struck with the might of a demigod, his blade slicing through the air, but Horus was no longer bound by the limits of a mere Primarch. The Warmaster, corrupted by the dark gods, countered with savage blows, each one reverberating with the unholy strength of the Imperium. Despite Sanguinius' speed and grace, despite his indomitable will, he could not fully withstand the wrath of the fully corrupted Horus. Horus was now an embodiment of destruction. In the final moment, Sanguinius fought not just for the Emperor, but for the Imperium, knowing that his death could provide the Emperor with the last chance he needed. But it was not enough. Horus, with brutal efficiency, struck the mortal blow. The angel fell. His blood stained the deck of the vengeful spirit. Sanguinius' death was more than a loss. It was a herald of the end. His sacrifice, however, was not in vain. His death sent a ripple of rage and grief through the Emperor. And then the eerie silence that followed. The Emperor appeared. His form, weary of centuries of war, yet still imposing, radiating the sheer presence of a god. He gazed upon Horus, his most beloved son, now twisted. Horus had once been the brightest star of the Emperor's galaxy, his chosen heir, the leader of the Great Crusade. Now he was a creature of darkness and malevolent force. The battle that ensued between father and son was beyond comprehension. The Emperor, though weakened, summoned all his strength, wielding his psychic might and ancient power against the chaos-fueled monstrosity that Horus had become. Every strike from Horus carried the weight of dark gods behind it, whilst every defense from the Emperor was the last hope of humanity. Blow after blow, the Emperor and Horus clashed. The walls of the vengeful spirit shuddered, the air cracking with psychic energy and raw power of the warp. Horus unleashed the full force of chaos, the full fury of the gods themselves. But still the Emperor fought on, driven by his love for humanity, and perhaps still a lingering hope for his lost son. And then, the fatal moment arrived. Horus, with a final devastating strike, pierced the Emperor's armor, leaving him on the verge of death. Time seemed to stand still for this instant. The Emperor, his body broken, gazed upon his son. For a brief, fleeting moment, underneath the madness and corruption, the Emperor saw the shadows of the son he once cherished. There was a flicker, a momentary hesitation in Horus's eyes, a glimpse of a man who he once was. In this hesitation, the Emperor found his final resolve. He knew that Horus, as he had once been, was truly lost, consumed by the madness of chaos. But in that brief second, the Emperor realized the only way to save humanity was to destroy the creature that had once been his son. With the last of his strength, the Emperor unleashed his full psychic might, an unimaginable force that obliterated Horus' soul from existence, erasing him completely. There was no resurrection, no return. Horus, the Warmaster, the mightiest of the Primarchs, was gone. Not even the dark gods could bring him back. His soul obliterated, wiped into the warp, leaving nothing behind. The Emperor had done what he had sworn never to do. He destroyed his most beloved son to save the Imperium. In that instant, the greatest tragedy of the Imperium was realized. Horus, once the brightest sun, had been struck, mortally blown. The Warmaster was no more. The price of that victory would haunt the Imperium forever. With Horus dead, the traitor legions fled, but the damage had been done. The Emperor was mortally wounded and was placed upon the Golden Throne, where he would remain in a state of eternal decay, kept alive by 1,000 souls a day. The Imperium was saved, but it would never be the same. The dream of the Great Crusade was shattered. Horus' downfall is not just a story of one man's corruption, but a reflection of the internal struggle between loyalty and betrayal, between hope and despair. His legacy is felt across the galaxy today as the Imperiums fight on, haunted by the memory of the son who could have been its saviour, but instead became its greatest enemy.